Hey, what's up everybody? Time for another game theory video. If you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks to the people that have been supporting the channel. Links are in the description or super like whatever. So again, since I put in Dragon Ball again and thinking about it again, and of course the game is kind of in the old Yeller Mugen patch it feels like, but I want to talk about once again, if there was a final DLC, who I would have put in the game, okay? And this isn't the characters that I like, but this is me coming from a objective standpoint, trying to make the best game possible. And if there was a final DLC of 6 characters, these characters should have been in the game. Now, why do I say that, right? Well, how many times have I said this before? When you are making a fighting game, a new product for a consumer, right? You need to be able to sell that product to the consumer and tell them that they're getting something in this product of yours, in this case, a fighting game, that they cannot get in any other product, right? And that's why I always say one of the most important things and why Dragon Ball FighterZ is such a dropped ball is because you actually have a sort of foundational system that is not possible in any other game. That idea of the tug of war between fireballs, homing, dashing, reflecting, all this kind of stuff, that is something that cannot exist in any other fucking fighting game. And that's why they should have put more of an emphasis on it, right? You know, if you're playing Street Fighter, Ryu can't fly through fireballs. He can't do that shit, right? If you're playing a Soul Calibur game, attacking game, these characters can't do that shit, right? So even, you know, if someone is perhaps not a huge Dragon Ball fan, right? Because we already know that people are going to buy the product because it's just a Dragon Ball game in the first place, right? People will buy Ultimate Battle Fuck My Shit 22, whatever that game is called, right? You need to be able to sell it to, let's say, the fighting game connoisseur, let's say, right? The person that wants to see a new meta of a fighting game, to get an idea of a meta that they cannot enjoy in any other fighting game, right? And that's why they should have focused on that idea of homing, dash, and reflecting versus fireballs, that tug of war. It's an interesting concept, right? And that's why I've also said many times there should have been more block damage in the game, right? When there's more block damage, guess what? The opponent is now forced to use the system that is not in any other game, right? Which then shows off the game to the consumer or the potential consumer, right? So what are some things that we can also throw a mix on this, right? Especially when we think of there's things like there's the Dragon Ball mechanic and the Vanish mechanic, right? Well, first of all, I've said many times before, there should have been a fucking vacuum cleaner character. At least a few, right? So we have a couple vacuum cleaner potential characters right here, right? You could have added is it dr.gero? I think it's dr.gero. Is it Gero? dr.gero? dr.gero? I forget. Are we speaking Japanese or English? I forget what it is. Anyway, so you could have had another tag team character and you could have had a vacuum character, right? And just like you have Super 17, right? Instead of these characters having reflecting in this idea of this meta of the game where there is the idea of fireballs versus homing, dash, and reflecting, now you have a couple of vacuum cleaner characters into the mix, right? And these characters, although they cannot reflect your normal attacks during a string, right? When they reflect a fireball, if you continue to do a fireball, beam, whatever it is, even a super, I wouldn't have it reflect, level 3 super fireball. I mean, that's too much, but it could be a super fireball, whatever like that. They instantly fill up their meter, right? So you have given these two characters and of course, because as I said, if I was making the game, I would have there be more zoning in the game. I've often made the example of a character like Vegito, right? I would have given him a EX Banshee Blast that counts as a laser beam, right? So then you can't fly through it because I think the Banshee Blast and the way that Vegito works in the game, although he's not how I would have done him in the game, he's a interesting character when you think about, again, this idea of the tug of war between fireballs versus homing, dash, and reflecting, because the idea just of a move like the Banshee Blast cannot exist in any other fighting game unless it has this, sort of foundational system, right? You couldn't have a character in a Street Fighter game that can throw fireballs the whole time like that. You'd have to put in a system, a fundamental system that every character can use to potentially get out of that, right? And that's why, again, I would say I would give Vegito a character like a EX Laser Beam, Banshee Blast to sort of throw a little bit of a spin on that, right? But again, that also shows that you can have different character archetypes in a game when you have a new system, which is also one of the reasons that Dragon Ball is a drop ball, because a lot of times when you play fighting games, you can only have, oh, this is a throw character, this is a rushdown character, this is a fireball dragon punch character, right? Now in a game like Dragon Ball Fighter Z, you could have had, this is a character that plays off of the ideas of fireballs versus homie dash reflecting. And that's why characters like Vegito actually could have been expanded upon, because they really focus on that system, right? But as I'm saying this, and we could have had more zoning, you could have thrown some characters into the mix, some vacuum cleaner characters into the mix. These characters, they can't reflect normal attacks, but guess what? They suck up fireballs for free, and it builds them tons of meter. They have a extreme weakness in the system, so to speak, that they don't reflect these normals, but they also have an extreme strength if they are versing a character that wants to throw a lot of fireballs, right? That's an interesting flip on the meta, so to speak, right? It's important, right? Just like a character, what would I say for a character like Raditz? Like, if we're thinking about a character like Raditz, we think about, well, what are some of his moves, right? Do you remember he had a couple of his moves, like some Goku, or was it Piccolo, or maybe both of them? They tried to teleport behind him and he kicked them behind because he was reading with the scouter. And he also has is it called Double Sunday, where he shoots fireballs and it can hits Piccolo and Goku at the same time, right? And there's even a 3D game where he can lock onto different people, right? Well, what is one of the things when you have a tag team game, right? You want to be able to have characters that are wacky and weird that cannot exist unless they exist in a tag team game, right? Because that allows you to give characters extreme weaknesses and extreme strengths, because they can always compensate for one or the other with a teammate when you build your team, right? So for Raditz, what I said I would have done to play off of the idea that vanishing is such a sort of, again, fundamental thing in the game, put a character like Raditz, right? And maybe if Raditz, he has a special move, maybe it takes some time, or maybe uses his EX meter, whatever, and he like taps his scouter a little bit. And guess what? Whenever you tap his scouter, guess what happens? Now, whenever the opponent vanishes, he automatically counters their vanish for free, and they can't do anything. Even if he's being comboed, if you think about how vanishes work in combos, boom, 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 boom. Well, guess what? Now the opponent has to know, oh, fuck, Raditz used his special move. I can't actually finish this combo with a vanish now. I got to save it, because if I vanish, Raditz automatically counters it, right? That's an interesting flip on the meta and shows off the game. It shows off the game in a way that you're like, whoa, that is something that cannot exist unless we're playing Dragon Ball Fighters, right? Isn't that an amazing thing when you can be like, oh, it's a Dragon Ball game. Oh, it's a party game, whatever. But there's actually a fucking mindset that you cannot get unless you play Dragon Ball Fighters, right? And another thing I would have said I would have given, guess what? I would have given, say, a double Sunday super move, whatever the fuck it is. Just like how, imagine when you play, is it Android 17 or 18? I forget their names, right? It's girl and boy, whatever. And when you're playing Android 17, where the girl is, right? And you know, the boy android comes out and he's like, hey, if you call any partner, he automatically shoots his laser beam. Well, also give him a move where if he's tapped his scouter, if he's wasted a super of his scouter like that, if the opponent ever calls an assist while versing Raditz, no matter what happens, boom, he instantly teleports out of the combo or the string and he's like, shoots a laser beam and he hits both of them, right? That's a mindset that can't exist in any other fighting game besides a tag team game. Just like give him a level 3, where maybe he has a level 3 and he shoots one laser beam, the screen freezes, you know, he does his little animation, shoots it at that person here, and he shoots it towards the background. And guess what? It magically hits the people that aren't even tagged in for some blue damage, right? And again, maybe he's super weak besides that, but you've given him such a weird gimmick that even if this character is, let's say, weak and has bad combos, or he doesn't do a lot of damage, period, whatever it is, you've given him weird gimmicks that now the opponent always has to remember, whoa, I can't rely on assists when I'm versing Raditz, because he can always counter it if he has this move stocked and ready to go. And he can always, even if he's not doing a lot of damage to me, he's doing a little bit of damage to me and a little bit of blue damage to my tag team partners. And the vanish thing, right? That's showing off a thing that cannot exist in any other game unless you play Dragon Ball Fighter Z, if you would have had a character that has something like that, right? just like I said, what I would have done too, I don't know how Omega Shenron isn't in it. You know, just like you have a character, is a little bit more simple to explain maybe, right? Have him be a Dragon Ball character, right? Like just like how you have the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, you know, he can build Dragon Balls, whatever. Have another character that can build Dragon Balls when they're fighting somehow. Excuse me, sorry. Maybe it's Omega Shenron. Omega Shenron, make it, have some kind of weird Dragon Ball mechanic. You could do something weird, like maybe as the more Dragon Balls that are already filled on the screen, the more powerful he becomes or something like that. Or maybe, you know, whenever you pick Omega Shenron for something weird, the match always starts off with 7 Dragon Balls or something like that. I don't know, right? But, you know, the more Dragon Balls that are stocked, and if he doesn't move, then he wastes a Dragon Ball sometimes. He gains a Dragon Ball. You know, that you could have played off something weird. There should have been another character that fiddles with the Dragon Ball mechanic like Gogeta does in some sort of way, right? Think of some weird way that makes him interesting. Wow, we can have another character now that is like, whoa, do I want a Gogeta team with Omega Shenron? They both use Dragon Balls, right? Just like Dabura. What could you have done with Dabura? Guess what? Maybe Dabura, you know, you could have given him some freeze moves, spit moves, whatever it is, right? Give him his, you know, the game is pretty homogenized in the way that characters work, whatever. Give him some weird moves, but guess what? Maybe just in case you want a team that has all vacuum cleaners, maybe Dabura doesn't have a regular, you know, reflect as well. So guess what? Whenever he does a reflect, little Bobbity comes out, and, or maybe it's Babocevich or whatever names, and he comes out with the, that's not a ball sack. Oh, that's a ball sack, Bob. That's definitely a ball sack. No, it's not a ball sack, Pichu. He comes out with the little thing that sucks people's energy or something like that, right? But he sucks up the fireballs. Maybe he's another vacuum cleaner character, right? He has a couple Bobbity moves. Is it Bibbidi or Bobbity? I don't remember his name. I don't remember if he's Bibbidi or Bobbity, whatever. Anyway, but point is, he has a couple weird moves. So now you could have 3 vacuum cleaner characters that you're like, whoa, this is a team that counters zoner characters, right? They're going to be weaker, quotation marks, towards other characters, but they are strong versus zoner characters, right? But of course, giving the opponent, you know, some more different ways to play around, right? And of course, I say something weird. Maybe you could have had Bulma to throw something weird in. I don't know. I just say this. I'm iffy about this, but I'm saying this in a way that you could have sold me. You could have sold me if you have a good idea. Maybe Bulma's another outlier where she's another character that she's a Dragon Ball character. She fights with capsules and everything like that. She builds Dragon Balls really quickly with something she does. She can like find a Dragon Ball automatically with a special move, something like that. Maybe she's also a character that she throws out a capsule and she can't reflect moves because she's like, you know, she's a little girl or whatever like that. But she has a capsule that sucks up fireballs, right? So you have these different characters. Maybe she's another character like Raditz that she is, if she uses one of her capsules or something like that, if ever the opponent vanishes, her capsule protects her and boom, it explodes or something like that. The point is, you add some wacky characters, right, that can throw a different spin on the meta, right? And it's this meta that can only exist because it's a tag team game and because it's a Dragon Ball game, because of fundamentally how it works, right? And it shows off the game system. You should have had wacky shit like this. And that's why I say Dragon Ball FighterZ is such a drop ball, because, again, how many times do I have to say it? Just the tug of war between Fireball versus homing, dashing, and reflecting. That's awesome. You have a great way. You can already have brand new character archetypes. Vegito, the way that Vegito is in the game, he can't exist in any other game besides Dragon Ball FighterZ. But he can exist because of the meta. And that's why in the foundational system, that's why you should have built upon that and you sort of focused on it. And it's such a drop ball. And to end this with, I would have, again, I said this before, I would have added some more wacky moves in the game. How many times have I said how I would have done the final explosion? You can watch the videos for the full thing. I would have had some weird moves, and this is just an example that shows you can do weird shit in a tag team game that cannot exist in any other game unless it's a tag team game, right? Have Vegeta, you know, you don't need a Majin Vegeta, you know what I mean? You already have enough Vegetas, right? But give the Super Vegeta, whatever it is, his final explosion is Majin Vegeta. Make it something crazy like a level 5 super, right? But it's a super that no matter what, basically, you have to remember that it automatically kills Vegeta, takes 5 levels, whatever it is, but it automatically does, you know, however much life to the opponent. Half-life, whatever it is, you know, the opponent has to take half-life, right? but it has a super slow startup, right? Blah, 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 sayonara, Bulma, Trunks, Soshite, Kakaroto, whatever the fuck he says, right? Whatever order it is, he says it right. But it's super slow startup, and guess what that gives the opponent? They have this in their mind. It's such slow startup that you're like, You're like, fuck, he's going through this phrase, you know what I mean? He's wasting 5 levels of his bar, and I know he's going to automatically die, but I can't block it. It's full screen. But it also, because of that, it gives the opponent the idea that, do I want to sacrifice taking half life from this myself, or do I want to tag in my teammate to take this damage as well? And I said the one caveat, the asterisk mark that I put to this, I would say that Vegeta would be invincible to everything unless it's a level 3 as well, right? So if you try to hit him, you can't hit him. He blocks everything. If you try to super him, he blocks everything. But maybe put in some property of the game that a level 3 can knock him out of it, right? And so he goes through the little speech, blah, 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 blah. Boom, then he blows up, right? So where are you going? Blah, 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 blah. If you don't have quite enough meter, you might have enough time to charge up just a little bit more to waste your level 3 to kill him, right? Or you're like, I'm not going to be able to waste enough. I'm not going to be able to charge up enough for a level 3 if I don't have it socked already. So you could be like, do I want to automatically lose half-life to this character? Or do I want my tag team partner to take it for me? That's an example of a move that is guaranteed damage that cannot exist in any other game unless it is a tag team game. And it also sort of respects the lure of the series, and it's something fun you could have done. And that's why I say Dragon Ball FighterZ is such a drop ball, because there are just so many opportunities that people are going to buy the game no matter what. People bought Ultimate Battle, fuck my shit, right? People will buy bad Dragon Ball games. So make a fucking amazing fighting game that can only be possible if it's Dragon Ball Z. And that's why the game is a huge dropped ball to me to this day. Anyway, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want to. I appreciate it. Thanks. Super like, PayPal, Patreon, links are in the description. Thanks to the people that have donated recently. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.